Okay, I believe we are live for our next Wellbeing Wednesday. Woohoo! We are back for another episode here. So for those of you who have already seen one of our Wellbeing Wednesdays, welcome back. If it's your first time, welcome to this fun time where we're just going to learn about our well-being and figure out ways that we can improve our holistic well-being. So this is a monthly segment that shows childcare providers and caregivers like you simple ways to support your own well-being, because taking care of ourselves is indeed taking care of others. When you're an early childhood educator, director, parent, or someone who just feels like a parent some days, which happens to be me sometimes, you're sure to pick up tidbits of actionable advice here about how to support your overall well-being and get back to feeling like yourself. So I'm your host, Susanna Cree with Be Well, Care Well, Arkansas. That is a curricular concepts program that's all about supporting the well-being of our early child care providers. We also have Luis Mendoza joining us today, and we are so excited to get into a conversation with him. Hello. And we will get there in just a moment. So again, if you all are familiar with Wellbeing Wednesday, you know that each one of us has a theme. Each time we get together, we talk about a specific topic related to our well-being, and we have an amazing guest who joins us every time. So February is National Heart Health Month, which is exciting, but we also thought that we would take a little different approach, given that it's also Valentine's Day time as well. So not only do we think about our physical heart, our blood pressure, our cholesterol, our physical health, but it's also about our emotional and how these two can be so interconnected. We have our emotional heart, and then we also have our physical heart. And like I said, I'm excited to welcome our guest, Luis Mendoza, who is the founder of Power Body Soul, which provides clients with interactive body sculpting experiences designed to elevate their soul, reinvigorate their body, and help them become the person they most desire to be. Given his fitness background and holistic approach to fitness, I think we're going to have some really great conversations. So thank you so much, Luis, for being here. And I'm just going to jump right into it with a kind of a quick question. Since you have a holistic kind of approach to fitness and our physical health, our emotional health, I'm wondering if you can maybe give us your take on the mind-body connection and kind of why is that important in Heart Health Month?
Yeah, for sure. So thank you again, for giving me this opportunity. Like I said, my name is Luis Mendoza, founder and creator of Power Body Soul. So the holistic approach, right, is based on the mind-body connection. And in this case, specifically what I'm referring to is how, our mental state of mind affects our physical state and vice versa. Our physical state also affects our state of mind. So something I like to reference here is the gut-brain axiom, which basically indicates that, physical health, primarily gut bacteria that's dependent on your sleeping, your eating behaviors, or, just general well-being and how that affects your mental state of being, right? So it's important to know, like, if you're not taking care of yourself physically, maybe not getting the correct amount of rest or the correct nutrition, you might find yourself feeling tired or even depressed, right? And then so it's like cat and mouse. Is it me feeling depressed because my life is hard or I'm going through things, or am I just not doing the correct activities to incorporate a healthier lifestyle and living? So it's important to be able to distinguish what it is we're dealing with as far as improving, our lifestyle. And the holistic element is because obviously, we can do 1,000 tips and tricks on reducing stress, but if we don't actually attack the core cause of stress, which could be, let's say relationship issues, or a bad breakup, and taking the time to heal those emotional wounds. And some of the things I like to implement in my systems are meditation and mindfulness techniques, to kind of bring that clarity of mind and help people navigate through those difficult emotions.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. I feel like a lot of times we don't hear, especially in the realm of fitness, like meditation and mantra. So I'm wondering, can you tell us maybe a little bit about how how you work the meditation in, and how that directly correlates to maybe some of the fitness results either you see or the fitness experiences that you've had or your clients have had, just to kind of help us understand that, why is doing those things actually going to have physical effects for us? Because a lot of times we think, oh, well, that's just my mind, I need to work on losing weight or something like that. So can you tell us a little
Right.
bit more about that?
Right. Sure, for sure. So, a really quick example that I like to point out is, let's say you're really worried about your day. You're like, don't forget X thing. Like, I need to take the chicken out of the freezer, right? And you're just kindly just, it's a mild stressor, which is fine. There's an issue. But if it's throughout the entire day and it never goes away, that does tend to take your concentration and your effort away from what you are actively focusing on. So, one thing you can do is just set a reminder. You write it down, it's there, and the reminder automatically comes and tells you what you need to do. So the same thing when it comes to working out is like, if you feel like you have a lot of stresses because you're worried about your home, or you're worried about work, or you're worried about other chores that you need to get done, if you allow your
Mhm.
mind the time to say, hey, I'm going to focus intentionally on what it is that I need to take care of, and then proactively work on that, that
Mhm.
frees you from now being able to focus and having clarity, because there's only so many decisions you can make in a day, right? And in order to become a more efficient person, you want to be able to streamline the amount of decisions you make. So if you can have a consistent set, or a system in place, right? For me particularly, I definitely like to have a meditation in the morning. It lets me wake up, kind of just set my intentions for the day, let me know what I'm going to focus on, and also bring to the front the worries that I might have that are lying underneath the subconscious, because it's not always present. It's not always like we know everything that's wrong with ourselves. Sometimes it's just a feeling. And then later on, you
Mhm.
remember, that's right, I had XYZ thing to do. And it's just too late at that point, right? And it just kind of adds to that stress. So if you're able to take time to concentrate on the needs that you have for your day, or for yourself, and set that aside, then when it comes to working out and actually focusing on your body, you have less distractions, and you have less worries, and that in turn gives you a higher quality of workout. And higher quality doesn't mean higher intensity. It just means
Mhm.
focused, intentional approach.
Interesting. So, it's funny you mentioned meditation, and kind of taking that emotional, energetic side of heart health. Like, um, I've tried, and this is where, for those of you who are listening, like, everyone's a little bit different. And if one way works for you, great. And if another way doesn't, great. I personally, I mean, I'm an avid meditator. I've tried in the morning, and I always fall asleep. So you were like, oh, it wakes me up. And I was like, that is so cool. So for me, like, I've kind of chosen to do the after work, like,
Okay, yeah.
really during the work week. Like, I take 10 to 15 minutes. Now, given I have a meditation background, I have a yoga teacher background, so like, that's kind of my jam. It's not everybody's, but I take 10 or 15 minutes where I set a timer so I don't worry about the time, and I decompress, and I'm just sitting in silence. Like, I'll put in my headphones just to kind of block out noise, but it's really just an end to my work day and a start to the rest of the day. But also, so I just want to throw that out there too, because that made me think of it. But it is so interesting, because with Be Well, Care Well, we talk about a lot of different holistic approaches to well-being. One of which is environmental, which kind of, it can take a lot of different um, avenues. But one of those things is kind of coming down to organization. It's for some people, like, if our space is cluttered, it clutters our mind. And so what you were talking about, of like taking time, it doesn't have to take a ton of time, but taking time to like write down everything that you think of that's in your head, that's just kind of floating around there, that's kind of weighing over us or hanging over us. Write it all down, get it out of our head, set aside maybe 15 minutes in the morning or 30 minutes in the morning, and then say, okay, what can I reasonably do? And then let it go and allow ourselves to focus. And I didn't even think about, and I have a personal training background, that having similar to and I'm trying to make it's connecting in my mind. I don't know if I'm actually saying it well, so please feel free to correct me. But it's almost like if you have a cluttered space, you might have a cluttered mind, and that might affect the quality of your thinking
Exactly.
or your productivity at work. But
Exactly.
also, if our mind is cluttered, then that might affect our focus, our productivity, our quality of our physical body, because I think a
Yes.
lot of times we think, oh, working out has to be where I get all of that energy out. But that's a different approach. Just like we talked about the different approaches with meditation. For someone, that might, they need to work off their stress and work off the mental chatter. But other people, maybe they need to do the mental chatter first so then they can be more present for their workout, because then your body is really able to focus and not have all these different things, because the
Right.
stress has so much effect on our body. So I
And
think
it
that that's
gives
a
you,
really cool approach.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And just to add to it, as far as
Mhm.
we were saying about the cluttering of your mind, if you're worried about things or concerned, that has a very real physical effect. You might feel tired just because of how stressed you are. And in turn, you
Preach.
try and work out and you're tired, you're not focusing, and that can lead to injuries, right? So it's
Mhm.
just so important to be safe in all aspects in regards to what you're doing with your body and being in control of your body. Oftentimes I know that I personally will have moments where I'm just not feeling as energetic, and I'm going through the motions in the gym, right? And even if it's the energy level isn't there, going through the motions in itself isn't bad because you're still fulfilling that responsibility, but making sure that you're not just also on autopilot, right? You still want to be
Yeah.
focused on what you're working on and make sure that your attention is on your body and not just like daydreaming. Because it'll happen. I'll be on a machine and I'll think of something I had to do, and then boom, 5 minutes later, I come back to and I'm like, oh, I just did my workout, but the effectiveness just isn't there, you know,
Mhm.
in comparison to when a focused approach would show a clear difference. Yeah, yeah. So, and then also you don't have to take into note nutrition. Nutrition is so important when it comes to your health. So I talked about the gut
Mhm.
brain axiom. So consider this, you wake up in the morning, you're rushing out the door, right? You miss breakfast and you're gonna get some coffee to get you to wake up, right? By
Mhm.
noon, 1 o'clock, your blood sugar level is low. That could lead to hypoglycemia, which leads to feelings of irritability and crankiness, right? So it's like how much more of a benefit did having no breakfast and only running on coffee really do, right? Um, obviously, right, not everyone has the time to say, hey, I'm going to have like a full meal, but obviously a good substitute of that would just be making sure you have like snacks throughout the day, that you can
Mhm.
maintain through your body. Dark chocolate is research shows that dark chocolate, 20 grams of dark chocolate is actually able to reduce stress and irritability in people. So,
Well, we got pause on that one.
oh
Just
yeah,
so you all know ahead of time that are listening, dark chocolate is good. Not like tons,
yes,
but just like a little bit of dark chocolate. So you just wanted to, a lot of times we think when it comes to fitness and nutrition, it's like all or nothing, black or white. And I just wanted to point that out for those of you who are listening. All right, sorry, continue on that. And also I definitely feel you on the coffee. That is me. I have so much coffee in my bloodstream. So feel you. But
yeah,
you were talking about
yeah,
nutrition and the 20 grams of chocolate, dark chocolate per day can reduce stress.
yeah. Produce stress, definitely it's so important. Like, let's say you have a limited diet and you're not eating, you don't have a well-rounded diet, and it's reliant on too many refined carbohydrates or sugars. Same deal,
Mm-hmm.
you go to the vending machine and you're gonna get some snacks, but in an hour later, you're gonna be hungry. You're gonna feel tired and lethargic. Same deal, because you don't having, it's really important. Like nuts, nuts and seeds are really good, like flax seeds, the pumpkin
Mm-hmm.
seeds, cashews, almonds, because of the omega-3 fatty acids that are inside. And then obviously, you don't want to have huge meals either. If you're stuffing yourself, um, and then you're super full, and then the itis hits, and then the only thing you want to do is take a nap,
Yep.
and that's not helpful
Mm-hmm.
for anyone if you're in the middle of your day and you still got 1,000 things to do.
Right. It's like,
So
okay, I've got nap time going on with the kiddos. I also want to take a nap time. And it's
Right.
like, okay, well, it's like, that's not even possible. And I think that that's a good point too. A lot of times, different, especially like the different diets that we hear about,
Yeah.
there's some where it's like fat is bad, no fat,
Yeah.
at all. But actually, it's the fatty content. And again, what you talked about was those omega-3 fatty
Three
acids,
fatty
like
acids. Yes.
the yeah, the healthy fats are what help keep us full. So if somebody's doing, skim milk all the time, if they're not doing any olive oil on their salad or something like that, if they're not having any nuts because they can be high, like walnuts are super high in omega-3 fatty
Yeah.
acids. They're also fairly
Yeah.
calorie dense. But those things you add, like if I have a yogurt parfait or something and I just throw a couple of walnuts on top, it's not like I just have to eat the walnuts out of a little snack bag and like that's all. Like I'm in the
Yeah.
forest
You
because I
can.
I'm one I cannot do it. But you add a little bit, you'll be fuller longer. So I think that that's
Right.
a really good
Right.
point.
Right. And then add to, one last thing about nutrition is just, and the
Hmm.
simplest thing people something don't consider is just being dehydrated. You know, being dehydrated can lead to symptoms of irritability and quick to anger because you're less able to control your emotions. And so,
Interesting.
going back to that coffee, it's actually shown that a cold cup of water in the morning has a quicker effect on waking you up than caffeine
Hmm.
does. And even then, and I understand not everyone wants to just drink water. There's water, there's mineral water, and then you can also infuse your waters. Quick little recipes.
Hmm.
Like lemon and cucumber. It's one of my favorites. Just chop some up, put it in a pitcher of water
Oh
overnight,
yeah.
and you got a fresh drink, to sip on. And not only that, but the infusion adds to the water. So now you have antioxidants to help protect your heart. I know it's heart health, right? It's heart health month. So
Hmm.
going back to that, if you're in a high stress environment, what the stress can do is it leads you to unhealthy behaviors. Like smoking or overeating, or you're too stressed from
Hmm.
your day, you're not wanting to go exercise or be active, right? And then your body's response to stress can be like headaches or back pain or stomach pains, which goes back to the gut brain action that I was talking about. Again, if your
Hmm.
environment is stressful and your brain is telling you, hey, it's going to alert your body, hey, I don't feel well, we need to change something because it's not going well. So
Hmm.
and long-term effects of stress, with exposure of cortisol can lead to heart disease. If you have high blood cholesterol or high blood sugar or blood pressure, that can affect the walls in your heart. And, you can have
Hmm.
plaque buildup, and then that can lead to you know, heart attacks, or that can lead to like chest pains or heart murmurs,
Hmm.
right? So it's important to know how it's all connected. Your emotional states, your nutrition, your sleeping, in
Hmm.
order to maintain homeostasis, which is a balance in your body on all functions. Yeah.
Absolutely. Man, you have hit on so many things. And I'm going to go to the comments real quick because we got it blowing up a little bit. Also, just a heads up that, let's see, we have a couple people who have responded to the question of what helps you declutter your mind to allow you to focus. Someone said being okay with not doing it all. um Nutrition, we talk a lot about, and you mentioned it, kind of the stress eating. A lot of times there's like the stress sugar eating.
Mm,
Sugar gives us a little dopamine kick.
yeah.
So when
Yeah.
we're feeling down, like we want sugar to kick that back up to reach that homeostasis. So that's a very normal stress response. But this person also said, oh well, now I'm not hungry when I'm stressed out. And that's also true because I use the analogy, if you're running from a tiger, that's like that fight or flight. You're not going to have time to stop and like graze on some grass or snacks or something like that. You're running from a tiger. So your body's going to be like, all right, we're not hungry, So, but it can also go the other way where if your body's overactive and you're burning through calories so much because your body's constantly running as if it's running from a tiger, you might feel that you need more. And then, of course, we also got a bunch of yays for chocolates.
Oh
We
yeah.
do have, I think, two questions here that
Okay.
I'm going to pose to you. One person said, does milk chocolate work? the same as dark chocolate, or?
Well, the reason dark chocolate is beneficial is due to the cocoa content. So specifically when you're looking at dark chocolate, you want to make sure that there's a 70% cocoa content in the chocolate. That's what has the bulk of the antioxidants and other health factors that are beneficial. Nothing against milk chocolate. I love a good hot chocolate. It's like one of my favorite cheap things to drink. But
Mhm.
definitely gonna stick to that 70% cocoa content. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I'm writing that in the comments. And then we have another question of how much water do you recommend per day?
Per day, I know the daily recommendation is 8 cups of water, and that might
Mhm.
sound like a lot, but the thing is that 8 cups of water takes into account all of the water in your meals as well. So it's not like you have to go and have 8 cupfuls of water, but you definitely want to aim for like
That's a good point.
at least, at least half a gallon or more a day. And that's not necessarily difficult, especially if you're spacing it out through the day. Understand this: when you are thirsty, you are already
Mhm.
dehydrated. So you want to
Yep.
be drinking water before you get thirsty, because that's, your body's already responding to that lack of hydration, right? And we want to prevent
Mhm.
that in order for best possible effects.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, this has actually come up in several of our Wellbeing Wednesdays already. This idea of how important water is. I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense. We are 70% water.
Yeah,
The earth
exactly. We're
is,
basically plants.
yeah. And I mean, this planet is primarily covered with water. Like water is so important, but it's also something so simple to start with. And, you brought
Yes.
that up, and, that's one of the things like with Be Well Care Well, we get, I think it's essentially a quarter gallon water bottle. And a
Okay.
lot of times we do a water challenge. If anybody's watching and you're in Be Well Care Well and you have not done a water challenge with us yet, let your coach know, because we can do that. Because I will tell you, I actually just had a program do their second water challenge. And also, if you're not in Be Well Care Well, that's totally fine. Let us know, and maybe, Great Good Concepts will run a water challenge for everybody. I know we did so last July. But I mean, one of my programs started again with a water challenge. They chose to do it a second time, and it was 30 days. Actually, no, it was 3 weeks. And I met with
Mm,
them yesterday. And you know what? They were like, I noticed my complexion is better. A lot of times, we have teachers who can't necessarily get up and go to the bathroom all the time. They have to
hmm
be with the kids. But she was really concerned if she drank more water, she would have to take
mm,
more breaks that she couldn't. Well, she's found that her system has adapted and found a new
adapted.
homeostasis. So
Yeah.
that's not a problem at all. She's finding she has more energy. Another person at that same program also found like her complexion got better, her energy got better, she was sleeping better, and it's just from drinking more water. They originally started with a half gallon a day challenge, and this time they were like, no, we want to go full gallon. And it's like, okay,
Wow.
awesome. And like, there
Yeah.
really are these effects and changes just from something that simple. And who would have thought that that would have come up? I didn't think it would have come up in heart health, like talking
Yeah.
about the
Yeah.
emotional or the physical. But here it is again, that axiom, that connection point where it is all connected. Let me check here to see if there's any other questions so far. If you all have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. We've got just a couple more minutes. So what I want to do is I want to check in with you, Luis. Is there anything else in particular? There's might have been things that you wanted to share that I didn't ask
Yeah.
questions about. So I want to see.
So, so a couple things I want to share, as far as like understanding, early educators are busy, and they're just constantly on the run, taking care of their students and taking care of tasks, in and out of education, right? So, as far as like, when it comes to those stressors where you're just having a really difficult day, like what do you do when you're already to your limit and you just want to stop? You want to pack everything up and go hide
Mm-hmm.
in the cave somewhere, right? So when those situations arrive, I like to invite people to try and do breathing techniques, right? So
Mm,
just breathing is just such an important part when it comes to controlling our entire well-being. It controls your heart beating, it controls your stress hormones, and it's able to just kind of do like a manual reset. So one of the techniques I really like is the 4-7-8 breathing technique, where
Mm,
essentially, I don't know if you guys heard of it, but it seems familiar here. You're gonna inhale for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 7, and then you're gonna exhale for the last 8, right?
all
Um,
right.
and I'll demonstrate here. It's just everyone wants, and anyone's watching wants to follow along. Go ahead and do it
I'm
together.
in. Let's do it.
All right. So ready and inhale, hold, and exhale. All right. And that's one count of the 4-7-8 breathing technique. So you do that, 3 times, kind of get yourself under composure. It takes less than a minute. And, and it's just one of those things to help you. Same thing, going back to, not always having the chance to, go and take the breaks you need, right? That's why snacks is so important to have, on your desk or something, nearby for you to reach to help you with your energy levels and to help you with, being able to be present, right? And then one thing I wanted to mention here again, when it comes to stress and it comes to the effects of stress, right? We talked about how it makes people stressy or it makes people not feel like working out. Something that people don't recognize is that internally, like as a whole, human beings are social creatures. We have our groups, and we are very much based on tribal instinct. So having a
Hmm.
strong support system helps you take better care of yourself. You're less likely to, indulge in those unhealthy behaviors like smoking or eating high fat diets, or drinking too much alcohol. Alcohol also has that impact, right? So being married or having, a best friend or just a community of people, like right here with Susanna, can definitely, benefit everyone all the more. Um, so, when it comes to doing that, also you want to make sure that you're taking care of your sleep, right? The biggest proponent, right? The biggest proponents are always going to be the same: exercise, sleep, nutrition, right? So here in this case, sleeping isn't necessarily the easiest thing. I know my generation loves to brag about how little sleep they get. I remember being in school and be like, oh, I studied till 4 in the morning and I got 3 hours of sleep. Or you'll go to work and they'll be like, oh, I did X amount of overtime. Like it's like this status symbol of how hard you're working. And honestly, it's like it makes you a less productive person if you're not able to have all your rest, right? So like some simple things to keep in mind is like, your environment, right? Making sure at least 3 hours before you go to bed that you're not eating too much. You don't want to go to bed hungry, or you don't want to go to bed stuffed either. Um, Making sure that you're not on your phone when right before you're going to go to sleep, right? The blue light that phone screens emit actually stops, the sleep hormone from developing and able to let you get good rest.
Hmm.
And so just those are just some simple things that can really just improve your overall health without really doing much of anything. I again going back to exercise, I know that a lot of people think exercises are like, oh no, I have to be, you know, going really hard and sweat a ton of
Hmm.
whatever, but that's not necessarily true. Research has shown that you only need about 2.5 hours of exercise that allow you to get those health benefits, right? And something else that people don't understand is that we have NEAT, which is non-exercise activities, and that accounts for your overall daily movements, right? You're that's not sleeping or you eating, right? So it's like you walking around or being active. So just taking those moments to give your body kind of like a little blood flow movement, just shaking it out, taking a seat, standing up, having a walk, because again, increases oxygen intake, which is good for your heart
Hmm.
and good for your mind. So
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, if this is okay with you, Suzanne, I want to go ahead and
Hmm.
just give a little shout out to my daily enhancer. So if you go to my website on powerbodysoul.com,
which is I put Luis's contact information as well as the website down below. So if you all want to learn more or reach out to Luis, you have that information below as well. So that's what he's referring to. So anyways, continue.
Yeah. So basically, it's a downloadable PDF, and basically includes a mantra meditation for your morning. A stretch routine to help you get that blood flow moving, and then like a small exercise routine to, again, just energize your body and get you feeling good for the day. One thing that you notice is that people, when they go work out and they're trying to like declutter their mind, so to speak, and they're working out super hard, that's actually not the goal of exercise. It's not for you to go into the gym and come out feeling like you just got beat up. If you actually come out feeling like you got beat up, you actually overworked. You want to be able to go in and come out feeling energized, come out feeling like you feel productive and even better than when you came in, right? So it's not about quantity, it's about quality, right? Always quality. So yeah, I just wanted to go ahead and plug that in real quick and just kind of make a mention if anyone's interested in that kind of having a more holistic approach to health and having a better understanding of the mind-body connection. Just a resource that I would recommend.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Luis, so much for joining us today and for sharing just all these small but fun and holistic ways that we can start moving more, that we can take care of our mind and our body, all of these systems and things working together. I'm definitely going to be rewatching this and like taking notes so that I can actually be like, okay, wait, all these things, okay. And for those of you who are live with us today, or if you're watching the replay, we are so glad that you are here. We love the comments, we love the interaction, and thank you for your questions. As we close out, I do want to give a special shout out to our partners at the University of Arkansas's Early Care and Education Projects. They are actually the ones who helped us start to bring Be Well, Care Well here to Arkansas, as well as Wellbeing Wednesday. And also for those of you who are interested in learning more about curricular concepts or being, in the know about everything that's going on, please make sure to follow Curricular Concepts on Facebook and Instagram so you don't miss a thing. If you like today's show, share it with your family, your friends, your coworkers. And if you are a childcare provider and want to learn more about enrolling in Be Well, Care Well, I have put the links down in the comments below there through our website. And I think with that, we're going to wrap it up. This has been another Wellbeing Wednesday. I'm your host, Susanna Cree, wishing you well. Bye, everyone.